Don't worry all you Chalamet fans, because Dune Part 2 is scheduled to release on the 1st of March. The highly anticipated sequel to Wonka sees Timothee Chalamet's character return on one of his whimsical adventures, gathering magical ingredients for his unique brand of sweet treats. But it looks like he's not the only one after the Oompa Loompa's secret flavor, known as spice, and the Harkonnen are... Huh? Really? Don't worry all you Chalamet fans, because Dune Part 2 is scheduled to release on the 1st of March. The highly anticipated sequel to Dune Part 1, which makes way more sense, sees Paul Atreides and the Fremen join forces to defend Arrakis from the Harkonnen. It picks up right where the previous one ended, and promises more of everything we loved about the first film. An even more star-studded cast, more action, more pale, bald, monochromatic bad guys, and above all, more giant worms. Let's take a look at the factors that will influence its box office performance. The first thing it has going for it is the success of the first film, which dictated whether there would be a part 2. And let's just say, it did well enough to earn a sequel. We're talking 6 Oscars and more than $400 million at the global box office. It had a good opening weekend, especially considering it was during the pandemic, at $41 million. But this could have been higher if the top brass at Warner Bros. Didn't essentially cut the legs out from under it by releasing it on HBO Max and in theaters simultaneously, known in the industry as day-and-date release. I guess they were hoping to drive more subscribers to their dying streaming service, get some of that sweet, dependable subscription money. But whether or not that worked, they did succeed spectacularly in pissing off more than a few directors. Nolan went off in a Hollywood Reporter statement, and Villeneuve was not best pleased either. He shot a significant amount of Dune on IMAX cameras, so viewing at home does actually change the film, as well as the viewing experience. And Dune's primary audience wants the full movie theater experience, as well as it being a lot more convenient to watch from home. People who go to the movies a lot see a streaming release as the studio lacking faith in a movie, and moviegoers can smell the studio's fear. Dune has since seen releases on other streaming platforms, namely Netflix and Hulu, which is really the best way to get eyeballs on movies, and thereby get the humans attached to those eyeballs interested in Dune Part 2. And it worked! Dune climbed into the Netflix top 10 just 2 days after becoming available in October 2023, nearly 2 full years after its initial release. Netflix and Hulu in particular are popular among younger people, students, Hispanics, and African Americans, who statistically are the most likely to go to the movies. Villeneuve calls the sequel an epic, action-packed war movie, which is good, as some thought the first was, slow. In fairness, many said the book could never be adapted for screen, and previous efforts all but proved that. So can't we forgive a bit of a pacing problem as long as the payoff is epic? Now that the lore has been set up, Villeneuve is free to get into the action. And it looks spectacular. Coliseum-style duels, huge legions of soldiers, and of course, people riding giant sandworms. The trailer also highlights the blossoming romance that was built up, like a lot, and not paid off in Part 1 between Chalamet and Zendaya's characters. A second it couple made up of Léa Seydoux and Austin Butler's characters also promised relationship drama, and let's not forget Florence Pugh's character. What are her intentions with young Master Atreides, huh? Does she want to freak or fight?
I don't know if this dude wants to freak me or fight me, you know what I'm saying?
The inclusion of these dynamics seems like a focused effort to engage a wider female audience, who are, let's just say, not the biggest market for Dune. Between the action, the romance, the cinematography, the cast, and the costumes, has the marketing push for Part 2 done enough to highlight how many reasons there are to see this movie? And can it bring back those who are just plain bored by the first? Let's talk about it. As we said, release is scheduled for the 1st of March, but it was originally slated to be released in November 2023, only to be delayed in the face of the SAG-AFTRA strikes. Projections put the opening weekend box office figures at $65 million on the low end, and some predict up to $75 or even $80 million. There are a lot of good reasons to think it will do very well, but Villeneuve knows better than most that simply making a great movie doesn't equal box office cash. His latest will be released in cinemas only. Crazy idea, I know, but it might just work. And tickets went on sale on the 26th of January. IMAX tickets went quick, sold out for the opening weekend, and pre-sales have outpaced Nolan's Oppenheimer, which blew past its $50 million prediction to pull in $82 million on its opening weekend. But let's not forget that this is a sequel based on beloved IP and that hardcore fans will always pre-order, no matter how many times they get burned. Warner Bros. Is certainly doing all they can to drive that number as high as possible. 10 minutes of sandworm goodness was played in select theaters back in January, and trailers were airing during NFL playoff games, which surely had sports fans buying tickets right there on their phones during the 3+ hours it takes to watch an NFL game. Dune's main demographic overlaps nicely with football fans, and studios more and more are targeting related interests to widen the reach for their marketing. Warner Bros. Has also been targeting gamers, with Chalamet and Butler locked in a knife-only Call of Duty deathmatch on the game's official YouTube channel. And Microsoft Flight Simulator brought an ornithopter into the game as a usable aircraft. The ornithopter made waves on YouTube, whether in videos about the extremely well-received LEGO kit, or discussing the viability of the aircraft's physics, or even an actual RC build to test the concept of the flapping, dragonfly-esque wings. In fact, Dune as a whole has carved out a nice little niche for itself on YouTube. There are now countless hours of video dedicated to breaking down the lore, not just of the first book that the films are based on, but the whole series of books. all 28 of them. I mean, some of the trailer breakdowns hit nearly 30 minutes, based on a single 3-minute trailer. These videos span a lot of different subcultures and could recruit a lot of people to be interested in the new movie. We mentioned that parts of Dune 1 were filmed on IMAX cameras. Well, the whole of Part 2 was filmed on digital IMAX, and the delay in release actually prompted Warner Bros. To print the movie onto 70mm film. When Nolan heard about this, he jumped at the chance to have Tenet re-released in 70mm IMAX. Tenet was, after all, released during the pandemic, and would really benefit from being seen in the intended format. While it might seem like Warner Bros. Doing Nolan a kindness, especially since he called their HBO Max the worst streaming service, the shrewd marketing tactic will actually serve to get Dune in front of even more people and in its full IMAX glory. There is also an expectation that the film being available in multiple formats will spur multiple watches. If you saw the modified to fit your screen version and loved it, wouldn't you want to see it as the director intended? Now, I know what you're thinking. If Warner Bros. Is going to re-release a film in IMAX ahead of Dune 2, doesn't it make more sense to do Dune 1 instead of Tenet? Yes. Yes, it does. God, you guys are so smart. Which is exactly what Warner Bros. Have done. In fact, as of the week of the 12th of February, Dune 1 is back in the domestic box office top 10. Wow, really? That's a sobering look at the state of the industry. If that's not a vote of confidence in the sequel, then I don't know what is. Actually, here's one. Warner Bros. Lifted the review embargo on the film as of the 21st of February. This means that reviewers who have attended early screenings of the film will be allowed to release reviews ahead of the film's official launch date. Obviously not a good move unless you are confident that the movie is good. For context, and let's try to think of a random example here, not taking shots at anyone in particular, Madam Web had its embargo lifted a day before its release.
Already dead.
Beyond that, getting yourself off the couch to go watch Dune 2 in theaters comes with another added bonus. You can get your hands on one of AMC's promotional popcorn buckets. I mean, what can you say about this? Whoever thought of this is just... I mean, come on. I guess it's like the Stanley Cup craze? Do they come in pink? Plus, once you've eaten the popcorn, those rubber bristles will be all buttery and... ugh. Well, we did say earlier that the sequel promised people riding sandworms. We talked about the studio wanting to reach as wide an audience as possible, and I'd say having an SNL skit written about the popcorn bucket is a sign that they succeeded. Talk about free exposure, and you can't really put a price on memeability. It reminds us of the promotional popcorn bucket released for Barbie, which caused outrage not for leading men away from Jesus, but for its $65 price tag. Although, to be honest, I don't think that's too bad. I mean, it does come with a large popcorn included, right? So the car itself is what, like $8 or $9? Am I right? Yeah, movie theater snacks are expensive. And if the sandworm pleasure bucket, TM, doesn't do it for you, again, I mean, come on, then there's a pretty good chance at least some of the cast will. Timothee Chalamet returns as Paul Atreides, while his last film, Wonka, is still performing well in theaters, taking over $600 million globally. Wonka being aimed at a different demographic could boost Dune sales too. There'll be a lot of parents in the Wonka audience who may want to see more of Chalamet, but in something less whimsical. Zendaya returns as Chani and brings with her a wide fan base, from those who know her as a drug-addled teen in Euphoria to those who love her as the MJ to Tom Holland's Spider-Man. The focus on her relationship with Paul promises much more screen time for her than in the first movie, again broadening the appeal of the film. Rebecca Ferguson returns as Lady Jessica. Her association with action skyrocketed after she appeared in the latest Mission Impossible movie, currently #1 stream movie on Paramount+, and Villeneuve was also careful to have her feature more prominently in the film than in the book. Javier Bardem, Dave Bautista, Stellan Skarsgård, and Josh Brolin also return. Among the newcomers are Austin Butler, Florence Pugh, Lea Seydoux, and Christopher Walken. Butler is, along with Chalamet, cementing himself as the new age of bona fide movie stars. He has worked with some heavy-hitter directors in smaller indie films like Jim Jarmusch's The Dead Don't Lie, as well as blockbusters like Elvis. This time he plays a pale, psychopathic killer, as ruthless as he is hairless, and member of the enemy Harkonnen clan. You gotta assume that he's never been to Arrakis before, right? I mean, I think I got a tan just from watching Part 1 in a t-shirt. Pugh was in last year's Oppenheimer and 2021's Black Widow, as well as being the highlight of the somewhat infamous Don't Worry Darling. She also starred alongside Chalamet and Greta Gerwig's Little Women, and many will be keen to see them reunite on screen. This young core have a lot of shared fandom, particularly females in the 20 to 24 age bracket, and from the interviews, it actually looks like they get along well off screen too. Lea Seydoux is well known for her turn as a Bond girl in No Time to Die, and also brings art house credibility with films like The French Dispatch and Blue is the Warmest Color, which unanimously won the Palme d'Or at Cannes. Christopher Walken needs no introduction, and his long and varied career, along with his unique cadence and impeccable dance moves, have earned him a fiercely loyal fan base. And this just in, Anya Taylor-Joy has confirmed the recent rumors that she has joined the franchise. She will play a big role that has all but been revealed to be Paul Atreides' sister. Taylor-Joy is well known for her roles in The Queen's Gambit, where she played a badass chick who doesn't take no nonsense and is just smarter and better than everyone else. And in The Menu, where she played a badass chick who doesn't take no nonsense and is just smarter and better than everyone else. She's bucking that typecasting though with this year's Furiosa, so let's see what her role in Dune 2 has in store. We mentioned earlier that the release was delayed by the strikes. This was pretty common, as stars weren't allowed to do any publicity for major studio movies while the negotiations took place. With a cast like this, it was definitely a smart decision to wait. All through February, we've seen a lot of interviews and publicity with the cast and director, including a Jimmy Kimmel appearance with Zendaya, Florence Pugh, Timothee Chalamet, and Austin Butler. Even off-screen, the cast have been grabbing headlines at red carpet events, with Taylor-Joy's outfit being called Muslim cosplay, and Zendaya's tribute to one of the OG sci-fi franchises being lauded in fashion circles. Fandango, the ticket retailing giant, released its own exclusive clip with the cast, as did Vogue, E! News, Access Hollywood, and many more. There is a concerted effort by many sides of the industry to push this movie. In the wake of the pandemic and the strikes, it is sparse like the deserts of Arrakis out there in terms of releases. And a lot of people and a lot of businesses rely on a steady stream of films to make their living, us included. So come on, Hollywood, keep cranking them out. With titles being pushed further and further away, the annual domestic box office is pacing 13% behind last year, largely due to lack of tentpoles. Dune Part 1, to some, felt like a refreshing rejuvenation of the blockbuster. It was praised for its strong writing, beautiful cinematography, feeling of scale, and strong performances from the cast. This was, at least in part, due to the emphasis on real sets and location shooting. Where many recent blockbusters would have green screened most of the movie, Villeneuve shot on location and built sets. Part 2 is done in the same way, shooting in Italy, Hungary, UAE, and Jordan. Even the sequence of Paul riding the sandworm was done practically. In fact, a huge chunk of the estimated $140 million budget was spent on animal handlers to capture and train the worms. It was a nightmare getting the stunt insured, but wow, was it worth it for the finished product. All jokes aside, Dune Part 2 has all the ingredients to be a big hit at the box office, as well as critically, and pay off the story that was set up thoroughly in Part 1. But enough of what we think. We want to know what you think. Could this franchise bring back the blockbuster sci-fi epic? Would you go to Jordan to ride a sandworm? Are you going straight to the theater to buy that popcorn bucket? Of course you are, you dirty dog. Head on over to Popcorn and join the online events to tell the studios exactly what you think about their latest offerings. And if you're looking for more analysis like this, check out our last video about the final entry in the DC Extended Universe. On screen now. Click me and subscribe.